So here's the question. A few weeks ago, we got the chance to briefly inspect and drive at a proving ground a pre-production version of the new Toyota HiLux, and we came away pretty underwhelmed. We've waited 10 years for this new HiLux to turn up, and I've got to be honest, I'm not sure it's been worth the wait. Did we get it wrong? Did we fly off the handle? Well, Toyota's invited us back to drive the production version of the 9th generation HiLux, and in this case, we're going with the SR5 4x4 pickup right at the heart of the range. And instead of a proving ground, we're out in the real world. We're going to have a really good look at this vehicle. We're going to drive it on and off-road extensively, and we're going to find out if we made the wrong call.
So by now you've read the Anglesey first impressions of the new 9th generation HiLux, watched the video and watched Fee and Tor's video as well, and caught up with the fact Toyota's slashed the model range and hiked the pricing.
Through all that, the SR5 4x4 pickup remains at the heart of the range. You've got the working class Workmate and SR on one side, and on the other side, the upper class Rogue and Rugged X, its off-road bestie. Now, the pricing of this car has gone up about $3,000, which is a bit of a hit, but nothing like what's gone on at the bottom of the range, where prices are up as much as $10,000, essentially because the cheapest petrol and diesel engines have been dropped.
One of the biggest deals about the new HiLux is its new exterior that's been created by Toyota's Australian studio. The front end stance is called Cyber Sumo, and it's meant to be a bit menacing. The SR5 is distinguished by its own 18-inch alloy wheel design and, well, not much else really. If you think there's something fundamentally familiar here, you're right. The new HiLux is based on the same frame and wheelbase as the old one, and that means the dimensions are identical, and so is the glass house and doors. Really, only the front and rear ends change.
Okay, so let's dive under the bonnet of the new HiLux. Well, actually, things aren't that new under here either. This 2.8 litre turbo diesel 1GD engine is essentially carry over. But if you go with the SR grade and above 4x4 auto pickup, you get the 48-volt mild hybrid version. Same power and torque and fuel economy as before.
But we've gone old school. Yep, that stick sitting in the centre console is the shifter for the manual 6-speed gearbox, and that third pedal sitting down there on the left is what's called a clutch. Now, opting to do the gear changes yourself means you miss out on the mild hybrid engine and 80 newton metres of torque. Officially, it's also a thirstier engine than the mild hybrid.
If the exterior has a same but different feel to it, then the opposite applies to the interior. The bones are the same, but everything you look at and touch is very different. There's a family resemblance here to the Toyota Prado 4x4. Big blocky steering wheel, big digital instrument cluster, horizontal infotainment touchscreen. Even the seats are new. Yep. Compared to the old HiLux, this is a huge update.
Apple CarPlay and Android Auto connection by wireless and cable is a given, but there's also AM, FM and DAB radio channels. Retaining AM is so important in the country. The sat-nav is both embedded and cloud-based, so one way or another, you get map coverage. The centre stack has become a nerve centre for key vehicle controls. Stuff such as the 4x4 controllers and drive modes have been grouped together. Importantly for us old fogies, there are still buttons for the air conditioning and audio controls on the centre stack, as well as the steering wheel.
For me, the least successful part of this overhaul is the digital instrument cluster. This is the upper spec of two choices you get with the new HiLux. And this one you have to cycle through a bunch of different choices and menus and whatnot to figure out what you want. It's not very intuitive and quite complex. The saving grace is at least you can nominate speedo and tacho meters in the traditional style.
Up front, storage is quite decent. There are double glove boxes, long thin door bins, centre console storage and a lidded bin. No cup holders down here though. They're on either end of the dash.
Move to the back seat and some of the gloss definitely comes off the new HiLux, and that's because it's retained the old wheelbase, and that in turn means space back here is at a premium. I mean, like, there's not a lot of leg space for a 6-foot-tall adult here, which is disappointing, and it is one of the real shortfalls of this vehicle compared to its rivals. Other vehicles like the Ranger just do this part of the cabin so much better. And so, to the tub. All right, now the big innovation for this generation Hilux are footsteps on either side as per the Ranger, but otherwise unchanged back here. You still can't fit an Aussie pallet between the wheel arches. The hooks and the sail plane all look like a bit of an afterthought, and to be honest, I'd much rather have a spray-in tub liner at this sort of money.
One big positive though, while the brake towing remains at 3,500 kilo, Toyota's upped the Hilux's gross combined mass by 450 kilos. You can now carry more than a thimble with you if hauling a big load.
All right, first time I've driven a manual for a little while, and after a couple of bunny hops home, I adapted. Look, I guess it's a bit like a bicycle. Once you learn, you never forget. And the good thing is, it's not a bad transmission and clutch combination. The clutch doesn't need excessive workouts at the gym to be able to press it down. It's reasonably light. The shift is pretty light too, and direct. Nothing about either component says anything reminds us at all of, the truck-like shifts of yore. Look, it's a $2,000 cheaper option than the auto, the 6-speed auto, and it's not for everyone. In fact, it's not for many people, to be honest. Nowadays, most one-ton utes don't even offer a manual option, but hey, it does offer a degree of control and connection to the vehicle that the auto sacrifices, and maybe that means something to some people. The engine the transmission connects to is the non-hybrid version with the manual. You only get the hybrid with the auto, the mild hybrid. Now, in terms of actual driving, I don't think you're going to miss that much. Yeah, it's a lower torque engine, 420 newton meters versus 500 newton meters, but it's really barely distinguishable when you're just driving along. The characteristics of the 1GD engine are pretty much the same with either version. It's a bit rowdy and rough if you choose to accelerate it hard as you get up to speed, but once you settle down at cruising speed, 100 km/h on the highway at sub 2,000 RPM, it's pretty quiet and relaxed. But like a lot of these big 4-cylinder engines, it does have a basic vibration and roughness to it that is unavoidable. It's certainly not in the same class as, say, the Ranger's V6, but most of the other power plants offered in this class, it certainly is competitive with. The Hilux also falls short of the Ranger and a couple of other newer utes like the Tasman in its on-road driving. It just doesn't feel as composed and modern as those vehicles. Toyota's done more detail work on the chassis. It's a carryover ladder frame architecture, but they've done some work on the suspension, damping, geometries, things like that, but it still feels fundamentally like a Hilux, a bit rough and ready. We're driving these vehicles unladen and you're getting plenty of movement and input into the cabin because it would be nice to drive with a few hundred kilos on board and see how it behaves. And of course, being a ladder frame platform, you're getting a bit of shake as well, which is a characteristic of these type of utes. The best thing about the revised dynamic package in the new Hilux is the electric assist power steering, which swaps over from the old vehicle's hydraulic system. So nice and light for low speed work, yet still has a decent level of weighting when you're in the high speed stuff. And when you are at low speed, say off-road, negotiating routes and rocks and things like that, there's not the same kickback and jolts that you get through the old hydraulic system. It's a very easy steering system because of its lightness at low speed to navigate on-road in car parks and off-road, between tight trees and hairpins and things like that. Now, we spent a lot of time driving this vehicle off-road on this launch, and I think that's intentional because this vehicle is terrific off-road. It's probably its strongest trait, certainly its strongest driving trait. Absolutely integral to that is the traction control system The off-road tuning map for that is terrific. You often don't need to resort to the locking rear diff to climb pretty gnarly obstacles. Low range and traction control will do it. I mean, some people will argue that they'd rather have the locking diff. Well, it's there. But the traction control system, just a steady modulated throttle foot, and the car will figure it out. You can have two wheels in the air and it will figure out where to send the power, which wheels are still gripping the ground and where to send the power. It's a very impressive system, and it is a very strong and endearing trait of this car. Sadly, however, Toyota's chosen not to upgrade the system with the new HiLux. It's still a part-time system, which means you cannot drive on the highway with the 4x4 system engaged in high range, unlike the range of the Tasman and other rivals, including the Triton and the new Navara. And that's a pity, because having the security of that all-wheel drive capability on the bitumen in greasy conditions is definitely an advantage. And that, as you may have picked up by now, is one of several shortcomings we think the new HiLux has. Look, this is a facelift, not an all-new vehicle, as the tag 9th generation might suggest. And because it's not an all-new vehicle, it is now falling behind its key rivals in several very important ways. Look, Toyota was very smart to spend most of our time driving this vehicle off-road in difficult conditions, because it truly shines in them. It is terrific off-road. But you get closer to the urban duties, where most people are going to spend most of their time in their HiLux, then the shine starts to come off. The bottom line for us about this new HiLux, we still remain unconvinced.